and when I turn them over, I'm quite disappointed. Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Now, sometimes it's good to go out your comfort zone, and it's good to try different things. So when I received some brand new moulds from Moulds and Shapes gifted to me by Paula, thank you very much, Paula, I decided to go outside my comfort zone and try something different. I have no idea whether it's going to work at this point because I haven't seen them, I haven't made them. So yeah, let's give it a go, whatever it is. These are the two moulds that Paula sent me. They're Moulds and Shapes moulds. I don't have a discount code for Moulds and Shapes, but Claire at Claire's Crafty Corners does. So if you're looking for a discount code, go check out Claire's channel. Paula also sent me a lot of other pieces, and she knows I love dragons, and just look at how gorgeous these dragons are. These won't be in today's video, but I will be using them soon, I promise. For this project, I'm going to use Let's Resin 2-part epoxy resin. I'm also using their black pigment paste, and I'm going to use their mixer to mix up my very small amount of resin. I do love the AI feature on these mixers these days. You can just walk away and it does it for you. However, with a small cup, I do pay attention because sometimes it turns round on its own. Once the mixer's finished, I do stir the mix myself to get rid of any stuck resin around the outside edge. And then it's time to add a small amount of the mixed resin to the black. I do mix this paste in with a little bit of resin first to make sure it is completely mixed so you don't get no blobs or messes. I then keep adding resin until it's all or mostly in the mix. And with a larger amount of resin, I then tip that into the large amount. Even though it's black resin, I still want to add a little bit of colour, so I'm going to use Sapphire from This Little Piggy, and their link will be in the description box below. Now, because black is such a solid colour, you may think that you're going to struggle to change that colour, but you can. However, you do need a lot of pigment in there to get any kind of difference. But it's going to make it slightly blue, and that's what I'm going for. Although I want a solid black front to these pieces that I'm making, I still want to add a bit of colour in, so the blue is going to help with that. With this mould, you're definitely going to want the base as the front. Some moulds, it doesn't matter whether it's the front or the back, but this mould, it's going to be the front. Now, I know I'm doing this backwards. I'm putting the black on the front, but that's why I've added that blue to it to give it a little bit more depth than just black. I'm going to use these cracks as a huge feature in these pieces. So I'm pouring the blue-black resin in between the cracks, and I don't want the resin to go over the top of those cracks. I need them just to fill in the space between the cracks. I'm going to use those cracks for something else. So once I think I've got enough resin in there, I'm going to use my heat gun. Now, I haven't put this resin through the bubble removing machine. The reason for that is that while filming, the temperature was in the 30s, and resin does like curing rather fast in hot weather. So rather than put it through the bubble machine for 10 minutes and have the risk of it going exothermic in the cup, I'm using the heat gun to get rid of those bubbles. It will also lucidify the resin so it flows more, and spraying it with isopropyl alcohol will also let it spread out in that mould. These cracks are quite thin. They're only raised very slightly. I would say probably 0.5 mil. So they're quite thin cracks, but I want to utilise these cracks. I want you to be able to see through the cracks. So I cannot let that resin go over the top of the cracks. And how many times can I say cracks in the same paragraph? These moulds are designed for kintsugi, which means you fill in the cracks with gold, usually, because it's a Japanese technique, apparently. I'm not 100% up on this technique. I could just pour a gold layer on the back of these, and that would be what the mould is designed to do. I'm going to do something slightly different. I try and get out any stuck bubbles with the micro brush. I spray it with isopropyl alcohol, and when I'm happy, I'll let it cure overnight. So the following day, I have a nice solid front piece to these coasters. And I'm now going to use clear resin for a second layer. Now these moulds are not particularly thick, but I'm planning to get 3 layers in these moulds. So again, I need quite a thin layer of resin. I have not mixed enough resin, so I'm going to mix some more. I'd rather not have enough than too much, although I do use all my spare resin, as you've seen in previous videos. This second amount of resin I mixed quite quickly, and there is more bubbles in it, but I'm going to put the heat gun on it anyway. That should completely take those bubbles away. But I just wanted a small level amount of resin over the top of the black, over the top of the cracks, but still leaving myself enough room for a base back colour. I do go around with a micro brush to get rid of any of those stuck bubbles I can see around those 90-degree angles in the cracks and the edges, and then I leave it to cure, but only for about 4 hours. So this is only 3 hours later, and I'm going to get out some colour. This time I'm using Chimera from the Tiny Turner. These are flakes, and they are a pink gold flake. Now this resin is really very soft. It's extremely thin. It just covers the layers of the cracks and that's it. And it is still very soft, but it's sticky, and that's what I'm after. If I put my finger on this resin, it will definitely make a fingerprint, so I'm going to be extremely gentle. I've got a very light, fluffy brush, and I'm pulling those flakes over the areas where the cracks are. I want the colour to show through the cracks. Now, I didn't put enough flakes down really to start with, but I can always add to that. See, the way I was thinking is because there's clear resin between the black and the colour, it would give more depth of appearance. Does that make sense to you? But I don't actually think these moulds are deep enough for what I was going for. And I do actually go on and cover most of the area with the flakes. That wasn't intentional, I just put a bit too much down, but I was worried about touching the resin because, as I said, it's extremely soft. So I'm using tweezers here just to drape that colour flakes over the areas so that I know when I pat them down, all those areas are going to be coloured. But not wanting to waste the flakes, I just spread them around anyway. This Chimera is an amazing pink, and the gold fleck that it has to it is absolutely beautiful. So I'm spreading all of those flakes around to get a really nice coverage. Now, with any Chameleon pigment, black behind pushes that colour out. So I've got some black 2-part epoxy resin made up already, and I'm just going to fill in the rest of the moulds with the black. So 2 layers of this resin has been done in one day. You don't have to wait for a previous layer to cure up completely before you put the next layer down. In fact, the bonding process of the resins work better when they're soft. So layering can be done quite soon after the previous layer, as long as the resin is stable enough that they stay separate. I do go around with my micro brush to try and get rid of any trapped bubbles, but when I do, I really have to be gentle because I can feel the layer underneath moving. That's how soft it is, but it's stable enough for the last layer. Now, a couple of the moulds were a little shy, and one of them had a little bit too much resin. So I adjust those, I squirt them fully with isopropyl alcohol, and I leave them to cure overnight. So the following day I can demould. This is about 18 hours after pouring the final layer. And as I said, it's really quite warm here, so they are nicely cured up. I'm eager to see what colour you can see through the cracks. And when I turn them over, I'm quite disappointed. Now, the reason I'm disappointed is that the cracks themselves are not shiny, they are matte. So the finish that I was expecting or looking or hoping for was not there. They looked dull, and although they do have a chameleon fleck to them, they will change their colour depending on what light source they have or which direction you're looking at them in. The rest of the mould is extremely shiny, so it's difficult to film without getting such an amazing reflection. Now, I was hoping, as I said, that the cracks were shiny, but they're not, so I'm going to fix that. I don't want to fully top coat these pieces, so I'm going to make some little dams around the outside edge of these coasters with tape to dam off or mask off, however you want to put it, the edges, because the cracks go right the way through and round the edges. They're not indentations, they have an opening at the side. So if I poured any resin in, it would flow out of the side. I need to stop that, and I'm going to do it with tape. I'm using gaffer tape. You can use whatever tape you want. I'm slicing it into thin slices on my cutting board with my scalpel. You can use a really sharp blade. And I'm making sure it is more or less level to the top of the coaster. By the way, I just want to say hello and welcome to all my new subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed already, maybe you would consider doing so. It doesn't cost a thing. It definitely helps my channel out. And I really appreciate all those thumbs up and comments. A thumbs up helps YouTube know that you enjoy my content. And then they will push it out so that more people have a chance to see it. I'm struggling at the moment to keep up with comments, but I do really try to answer every comment that I get. And just to let you know that everything that's in this video should be linked in the description box below. If I've missed any, please do let me know, and I will do my best to sort that error out. Now I'm going to use some UV hard type resin from Resin, and my plan is to put the UV resin in the cracks only. Now, even though this is a small bottle of UV resin and it has a small tip, it really is too big for these cracks. The cracks are quite small, quite narrow. You can see with my little micro brush how narrow they are. I can just get a micro brush in there. So I'm pulling the UV resin down into those cracks. I realised very quickly this is going to take forever, so I sacrificed a small, I think it's a 20ml bottle with a needle top lid. Ideally, if you're going to use a needle top bottle with UV resin, it needs to be black so that the resin can't cure within the bottle. I didn't have any black bottles, so I'm sacrificing a clear bottle, so that I can do this quickly, and I make sure that when I do cure it, that bottle isn't anywhere near the lamp because the resin will go hard in the bottle. And I use this needle top to go in the cracked areas. It makes it so much quicker, so much easier, and is way more accurate. I have pinpoint precision, and as you can see, brings out the shine of that matte finish very quickly. And as long as I make sure there's no bubbles in there, I'm happy. I can put it under the lamp. keeping that little bottle well away from the lamp. Now, of course, I can't keep resin in this little bottle because it's clear the resin will go hard in the little bottle. So that's why I've sacrificed it. Ideally, a black bottle would be so much better. But when you haven't got any, you make do with what you've got, don't you? You can see here how shiny that crack area now looks compared to one that hasn't been transformed. And I really like that shiny appearance. So if you find that you have pieces that don't go according to plan, don't give up on them. See what different effects you can do with different resins. Change them, adjust them, don't give up. And here's a close-up if you can't see the difference. I'm not bringing that UV resin up to the level of the rest of the piece. It's still below that level. I just need it to be shiny. Once I've done all 4 pieces, then I go around with a deburring tool to clean up those back edges. A deburring tool is ideal for resin, and it's less chance of hurting yourself with a blade. Very straightforward, very quick, very easy. And to do the corners, just turn the piece around in your hand, because the corners need to be snipped as well. And this is the easiest way I've found of doing them. So it's all nice and smooth. Brilliant tool. Perfect for that application. And finally, I'm going to add some writing to the front of these coasters just to give them the pop that I'm looking for. These coasters are quite dark, and having white writing on I figured would look fantastic. I used my X-Tool M1 to cut these out on vinyl, transferred them with transfer tape after weeding them, and now I'm taking the transfer tape off if I can actually get hold of it. Of course, a Cricut does exactly the same thing, and I still do have my Cricut, but because of lack of room, it's stored in the spare room. My X-Tool does everything I need, so one piece of machinery taking up room is better than 2. This is just white vinyl, and I just think it makes these pieces pop. Each one has a different phrase, so that it's a set, but they're all different. The cracks are all different as well. I did go on to put sticky back cork on all of the bottoms so they have a nice protective layer on the back. They won't scratch your wooden furniture, for instance. Now, my only thing with this mould is I'd wish the cracks were a little deeper and a little wider, but that's personal preference. These moulds are actually really high quality moulds. The shine on these pieces is incredible. Anyway, I hope you've got something out of this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Come back and see me next week, because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week. Happy crafting, and bye for now.